creatures. There are undoubtedly many reasons for this adherence to theistic mutualism among modern evangelical Calvinists, and it is not my purpose in this volume to investigate each of these reasons. Suffice it to say that confessional Calvinists who uphold any aspect of theistic mutualism are faced with the peculiar and perhaps insurmountable challenge of reconciling their mutualist understanding of the God-world relation with the language and intent of the classical Reformed creeds. It should be noted that there are both hard and soft versions of theistic mutualism. The harder sort regards God as a person who allows other beings to function as first causes or absolute originators of actions, events, or objects, and who himself stands as an onlooker within creation, susceptible to an increase in knowledge. Hard theistic mutualism also tends to regard God as needing the world in some respect. Thus he is compelled to create and sustain it. It is this harder theistic mutualism that is espoused by open theists and process theists. Soft theistic mutualism, in contrast, tends to hold that God does not create the world by dint of absolute necessity. Neither does he need the world in any significant sense. Moreover, many soft theistic mutualists do not believe that God is intellectually open or in process of development. Indeed, many who subscribe to the softer variety of mutualism have stood firmly against intellectual and volitional becoming in God. They maintain that God neither learns nor depends on creation for his knowledge, and that his will is not changed by the actions of creatures. Nevertheless, they do allow for a measure of ontological becoming and process in God. This is to the extent that they, along with the harder theistic mutualists, insist that God undergoes changes in relation and in those alleged intellectual and emotive states of his that are thought to correlate to his changing relations with creatures. This ontological openness to being changed by creatures, whether initiated by God or by creatures themselves, is the common denominator in all forms of theistic mutualism. Theistic mutualists may disagree among themselves on precisely how much process and development to allow in God, or even over what the ultimate source or cause of such development might be, but all hold to a divine ontology that allows for God to acquire and shed actuality of being. At first glance, the moniker theistic mutualism or theistic personalism seems harmless enough. Perhaps it is even attractive insofar as Orthodox Christians believe in a God who subsists as three persons in relation, and who lovingly calls us into the joy of personal fellowship with him. No doubt patristic, medieval, Reformation, and Puritan theologians held forth the glorious prospect of the sinner's reconciliation to God and the benediction of unbroken fellowship with him in glory. Theistic mutualists recognize that classical Christian theists believe such things. They are not convinced, however, that the traditional emphasis upon a wholly unchanging, simple, and purely actual God is sufficient to deliver such blessings to us. They think that if God cannot change or be affected by the world in any way, then our relationship to him seems overly one-sided, and thus rather impersonal and non-dynamic. Furthermore, the Bible depicts God as ensconced within our history, as one whose relationship with humans plays out along the same temporal lines as relationships between human persons, loving and merciful at one moment, Exodus chapter 3 verses 7 through 9, grieved and angry at another, Exodus chapter 32 verses 9 and 10, Ezekiel chapter 16 verses 42 and 43, turning away from man and returning to man in mercy and reconciliation, Exodus chapter 32 verse 14, Psalm 80 verse 19, and Malachi chapter 3 verse 7. These are the components that make personal relationships truly personal, are they not? From the viewpoint of theistic mutualism, such dynamic reciprocity and mutuality seem to call for an overhaul of the well-intentioned, if misguided, classical emphasis upon a God who cannot change in any way whatsoever. Intended to replace the older strong account of an absolutely unchangeable God, the newer doctrine makes space for a mutual give and take with God in an interpersonal way.